Cutting across wild streams and remote forest paths, researchers from TESRI's Botany Division fan out across Lanyu Island in southeastern Taiwan, hoping to give the large purple orchid a new lease on life. This and many other endangered plant species are making a gradual comeback thanks to the Endemic Species Research Institute's hard work. A gossamer veil cloaks this enchanted mountain realm. Sea air, heavy with humidity, presses against Taiwan's central mountains, creating a dense, cottony layer of clouds. Taiwan, a nation straddling subtropical and tropical climate zones, is an undulating land of densely forested mountains. Sea currents and seasonal winds give the island its relatively warm and humid climate and ample year-round rains. And a distinctly unique botanical heritage. Taiwan's plant species diversity is a critical national resource. Of the over 4,000 vascular plant species found here, 1/4 are endemic to Taiwan. However, nearly 900 of Taiwan's vascular plant species are threatened, with orchids representing the largest proportion of these. Taiwan's late 20th century economic miracle inaugurated a land development boom that has been shrinking wild plant habitats ever since. Industrialization turned farmland into factories and residential areas. The myriad of water plants that once made their homes here have seen their numbers plummet. The perennial yellow water lily, native to lowland ponds in Taoyuan and Hsinchu, provide ideal cover for striped-necked turtles and dragonflies. However, their plant and animal dependence face a dire threat as these ponds are increasingly drained and covered over. Along ribbon roads that snake up into the mountains, cash crop agriculture spreads outward like a cancer on the land. Economic exploitation casts a palpable, deadly shadow over this land. Furthermore, the promotion of upland leisure and tourism is denuding once verdant mountaintops. Lack of available lowland real estate is sending development ever higher into the mountains, destroying natural habitats and pushing out native flora and fauna. The beauty and perceived pharmacological benefits of plants represent another deadly threat to their existence. The common phaeus and many other sought-after wild plants have now also been culled to the brink of extinction. The beauty of budding beech trees in spring gives no hint of the growing threat to this tree's long-term survival. Research suggests that global warming in Taiwan may unleash its most immediate and devastating effects on the island's mountain beech tree forests. Only 15% of which may survive into the next century. Plant species in Taiwan became endangered for three primary reasons. First is habitat destruction. Habitats like Taiwan's once common irrigation ponds are vanishing. When these ponds get covered over, many of the water plants that once thrived there simply disappear. The second reason is overexploitation. Wild plants with medicinal value are sought after in the wild. Thus, many species now face a high risk of disappearing. The third main reason is tied to climate change. Many of our high mountain plants have adapted exclusively to the conditions found in Taiwan's high elevation areas, and thus have no line of retreat as average temperatures rise. Thus, these plants are now at extreme risk of disappearing.
这个维管束植物的一个名录的发布是一件非常不容易的事情。
TESRI is cooperating closely with the Taiwan Society of Plant Systemics to assess the growing threats to Taiwan's endemic plant species. Using assessment tools published by the IUCN, a Taiwan-specific red list of threatened species has been created that addresses variables such as population sizes, areas of distribution, and change trajectories. This list categorizes vascular plant species into 11 levels that reflect their current degree of vulnerability, with those in critical, CR, endangered, EN, and vulnerable, VU categories given priority attention in terms of protection and rehabilitation. Our action priorities are as follows. Rare and critically endangered species receive our first priority. Next are those whose habitats lie primarily outside of conservation and protected areas. Thirdly are those species that are highly impacted by human activity, such as economically valuable wild species and species facing habitat destruction. These are our priorities. Researchers are looking for Taiwan corduroy orchids along a stream embankment overgrown with silvergrass. This may be its last remaining habitat in Taiwan. Each time we go out to do field survey work, even though we're always clear about what we're looking for, we're almost never sure whether we will find our targeted species, because these endangered plants are extremely rare. Field observations are conducted annually. Researchers regularly and selflessly invest the great effort necessary to observe wild plants during optimal times of the year. Even researchers with years of distribution survey experience find it a daunting challenge to pinpoint clusters of the tiny, briefly blooming corduroy orchids in the underbrush. The population here once numbered over 200, but last year, 2017, a wildfire shrank their habitat to the river valley. Today they survive only in that valley, just 50 to 60 remaining. Natural population surveys gather data on growing cycles, population distributions, and current issues and problems, which become the foundational data for further research. Plants categorized in different conservation statuses frequently face different kinds of challenges and pressures. Rockery orchids bloom in mid-spring in its mid-elevation habitats. Humid, cloud-enveloped forests are a favorite habitat of this world-famous species of orchid. Rockery orchids flourish along the forest edge and rocky ledges, often found in the company of bryophyte mosses. The Council of Agriculture established the Rockery Orchid Conservation Zone in 1992 to reduce predation by rare flower collectors. As long as protections remain in force, plants within this zone should flourish and continue propagating. Blue-spotted mudskippers and fiddler crabs scurry along the Gaomei wetlands at low tide. Aerial views of the wetland area reveal the large swaths of Platyculmus sedgegrass growing here. These wetland pioneer plants offer cover for many invertebrate animals, fiddler crabs, and mudskippers, further nourishing and diversifying the Gaomei wetland ecosystem. Platyculmus sedge is a halophyte or salt-tolerant plant that thrives in brackish, estuarine environments. Although Taichung City's Gaomei Wetland Preservation Area now comprehensively protects the area's estuary ecosystem, coastal erosion and degradation still put long-term prospects in doubt. The Mitrastemon Yamamotoi root parasite, which grows in the Lianhuache area of Nantou County, has it pretty lucky compared to other endangered plant species. The Lianhuache Research Center conserves and manages central Taiwan's best preserved native lowland deciduous forest. Their work ensures that the several species of plants found only here in this area remain safe from outside interference. The hums of endemic Formosa giant cicadas echo across lowland forests during the month of May. The preferred food of this registered rare and valuable species is the near-threatened tree, Formosan revisia. Evolution has made these trees the cicada's single food source, leading to their present, inextricably intertwined relationship. As one species' disappearance may lead to the extinction of others, rehabilitating endangered species means restoring the food chain. TESRI personnel implement a comprehensive series of rehabilitation activities targeting seriously endangered plant species. Once found across the lowland hills of Miaoli County, Senilicis was thought to have gone extinct over a century ago, until researchers came across wild specimens in 2003. Sharing this habitat with Senilicis are Taiwan's critically endangered grissy thistle and the vulnerable rated McCartney rose. Harvesting and new road construction are continuing to keep these already rare plants in harm's way. Hoping to maintain populations, TESRI field staff carefully hand-pollinate Senilicis flowers and cultivate seedlings in TESRI greenhouses for wild propagation.
After collecting material from endangered plants, we typically use two propagation techniques. One is traditional, and the other is an in vitro plant tissue technique. Traditional propagation broadcasts seeds or plant seedlings. The drawback is that this approach is slow to produce results. So, to maximize yield, our lab uses in vitro propagation. We take seed capsules, seeds or suitable cloning materials, use aseptic seeding methods to create many new plants, and then acclimatize them in our greenhouse for reintroduction.
The endangered plant sterile propagation system created by TESRI currently propagates 35 endangered plants, including large purple orchids, Leptasis formosana, Senilicis, and Camrage fern. Natural or human-caused damage to these species in the wild can be mitigated using the seeds and seedlings in this system. Today, researchers trim back leaves on large purple orchid plants to reduce evaporative moisture loss and to help ensure that this once prolific Lanyu Island orchid species is reintroduced into the wild in peak form. A several-hour journey across deep Pacific waters ends as this ferry, laden with hope, slips into Kaiyuan Harbor. After a year of nurturing, young large purple orchid plants stand ready to regain a foothold on their native Lanyu Island. After crossing several fields of taro, researchers connect to the trail that then meanders unevenly into the island interior. The large purple orchids in bloom along both sides of their path tell that they are not far from the end of their long journey. The last section of the trail, erased by a series of recent typhoons, makes the trek even more of a challenge. The researchers cross a waterfall and scale a sheer rock face before reaching their destination. At the end of a journey of over 300 kilometers, researchers finally deliver these large purple orchids home. Tesri transplanted close to 500 large purple orchids on Lanyu Island between 2016 and 2017 and has continued to monitor their progress. The success of these transplants, apart from reflecting the hard work of Tesri researchers, represents the success of the reintroduction strategy. Tesri researchers have also reached out to local communities, interacting with village residents to help raise awareness regarding the issues surrounding endangered plant species. School outreach programs look to instill key conservation concepts through interactive activities that target endangered plants endemic to Lanyu Island. Each new large purple orchid planted in the wild is a new seed in the growing garden of conservation. Tainan Agricultural Research and Extension Station's Yunlin branch has developed a new variety of the beautiful large purple orchid. The new variety is being further refined for commercial nurseries and will soon be available for landscape and ornamental use. It is hoped that commercial production will ease the current harvesting pressures on wild populations. The endangered endemic Kosano willow once flourished in Sun Moon Lake's Tosha Basin area. Its bright yellow pollen, released by the male flowers, fill the air with a distinctive golden glint. Chinese homesteaders, who clear-cut these willows to make farms, sent the number of this species in the wild to precariously low levels. A Tesri-led restoration effort has now brought the Kosano willow home after a century-long absence. Camarage ferns are distributed in limited pockets in central and southern Taiwan. With their survival under threat, Tesri is working hard to turn things around for this endemic species. The Camarage fern is now found primarily on Lanyu Island, in Kending and Hushan Reservoir area. They are not particularly numerous in any of the three areas, and their survival over the long term is under threat. Tesri now adopts four approaches. Firstly is to physically relocate live fern plants. Secondly is our cold storing of live fern spores at -20°C. Thirdly is our Camarage fern cloning program. And lastly is our large scale of broadcast fern spores in the wild. In today's age of environmental activism and science communication, conservation is woven into the public consciousness, and many citizens are already actively involved in endangered plant protection efforts. A wetland area near Lenhua Temple in Hsinchu is today the only Taiwan home of Indian sundew. It is listed as endangered, with less than 1,000 known specimens. The area is also home to critically endangered blue bladderwort, Newton sedge, and Formosa yellow eye grass, making this area of Hsinchu a very important habitat area. However, the decreasing rainfall and humidity in this area is limiting growth opportunities for such carnivorous plant species. Since opening its Hsinchu branch, the SOW has focused efforts on wild carnivorous plant restoration. We've been at it for more than 21 years, Looking at Indian sundew, for example, our volunteers clean up the environment on a monthly basis, mostly in hopes of maximizing the success and survival of the sundew specimens there. To aid in the survival of these endangered plants, the Society of Wilderness Shinju Branch issues regular appeals for public involvement in the habitat protection efforts necessary for their continued survival in their native habitats. The public's definitive influence on conservation efforts was demonstrated again in Taipei City's Pingxi district. The students of conservation-oriented Pingxi Elementary School came across an unexpected and unique endangered plant species. It was the fairy lily, also known as the cliff sprite. Fairy lilies are native to rocky hillsides in northern Taiwan and most commonly found in the Pingxi area. With help from conservation volunteers, the students cultivated fairy lily seeds in the school's greenhouse. Conservation ideals, like the germinating seeds of fairy lilies, grow strong and healthy given the right habitat and conditions. Fairy lilies are both very rare in Taiwan and limited to a narrow geographic area. The activity today gives students the chance to plant these lilies and then to watch as they grow. Everyone will be able to see and enjoy these flowers and then to plant them in their native habitat. While the endangered plant conservation effort has never let up, current legislation and legal strictures are woefully inadequate to curb continued habitat destruction and overharvesting. At present, the Cultural Heritage Preservation Act is the only legal basis, but it gives protection to only 5. So, in the context of Taiwan's more than 4,000 vascular plant species, this is severely inadequate. The Red List release has spawned a new type of threat to plants. Companies are now setting asking prices for various plants based on Red List conservation status. This has ironically increased the vulnerability of these plants. So, our priority now is to quickly pass effective plant conservation laws. These endangered plant seedlings, fresh from the lab, are brushed for the first time by breezes in their natural habitat. The shadow of habitat destruction and the decimation of species has not been accepted passively or without challenge. In mountain forests and valleys largely ignored by society, a group of dedicated individuals is paving the way for the restoration of myriad at-risk plant species. The large purple orchid offers one strong example of success, showing the way for other conservation and restoration efforts. The list of vulnerable and endangered plant species is sure to grow. The combined effort of TESRI and people across Taiwan will see that many more species are rescued from the brink.